there, it's Sandee Sgarlata. Get ready to dive deep into incredible stories of people who've taken life's challenges and turned them into a roadmap to happiness. On this show, we're not just talking about overcoming obstacles, we're uncovering the real, gritty secrets to living a life filled with peace, joy, and genuine happiness. This is Happiness Solved, so let's get started because happiness is a choice, and the choice is yours. Shiraz. Hello, my friend. Such a pleasure to see you. It's been a while, but happy to see your smiling face. How's everything going?
It's going great. Great to see you too.
Yeah. We have so many great things to talk about for the audience. Shiraz Baboo is a multi-award-winning author, international speaker, and reality interventionist. I love that. I love that. We're going to talk about everything that he does because he has helped thousands of people to overcome illness, poverty, and unconsciously addicted struggles. Wow. Wow. And your book, How to Rewrite Reality, has changed lives across the globe. So much to discuss. Oh, I love the cover of that. That's beautiful. Love it.
But
Before we dive into all of this, Shiraz, because we have a lot to cover, can you give the audience an idea of what you had to go through to get to this point? Because there had to be something that happened in your own life, right? We all have our stories. What is your
oh,
story?
okay. So there's actually two major stories. One is on how I discovered this whole thing of shifting reality, and the other thing is on the addiction part. And I think a lot of people, you have life coaches, transformational coaches, they cover the shifting part, the mindset thing. The addiction part is a whole different ballgame that most people aren't talking about.
That's right.
And yeah, so what happened with me is it started actually back when I was about 19 years old. Um, so I'm a mutt. So my father is or was half Malaysian, half Indian. My mom is from South Africa, Zulu tribe with some Dutch ancestry, and so I'm all these things.
Aren't we all
And
though? I mean, it really like most of us like have like so many different.
yeah, in my case though, it's interesting because I present mostly as Black or Indian. However, people have told me that I'm Moroccan, Brazilian, Egyptian,
Yeah, you could
Irish,
probably fit into a lot of different
all
categories because you
yeah,
you are you are the epitome of the blended.
yeah.
I think that we're heading toward in the world, right?
Mhm.
I think I was actually just talking about this the other day with my son and his girlfriend, that I think eventually we're all going to start to look very similar because of the way that the interracial
Yeah,
genetics and how that works. But anyway,
centuries
in
from now.
any
Yeah,
event, you're a beautiful person. It's certainly by mixing the DNA around in the gene pool certainly makes for a beautiful species. So hey.
yeah. Thank you. And that's all well and good. The issue was being looking both Black and Indian. I had to deal with both Black and Indian racism growing up. So I
uh,
got a double whammy.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it wasn't so bad in high school, but when I started traveling, um, my friends and I went to Rio for Christmas and New Year's. And on the way back, after we went through customs, I got stopped. And they said, we need to ask you some more questions.
Mm.
So I called my friends. I said, hey, they need to ask us more questions. And the guy says, no, no, not them, just you. I'm like, but we're together. It's like, no, just you. My friends were white. I was Black.
What year was this, Shiraz?
Oh, this was like 20 years ago.
Really? So was this
Yeah.
before 9/11?
Yeah. This is
It
before.
was before 9/11. Okay. I'm
Actually,
just for
now that we're
reference,
thinking about
just
it,
curious.
I'm forgetting how old I am. That's like 30 years ago. Okay. So after that, it just kept happening. Like I live in Canada. I would do work in the States. And as I'm driving across the border, I get stopped. I get asked extra questions. I would get, and even traveling, flying, when I did the traveling through Europe, the Eurail, I got stopped between trains and I would get my person searched. I would get my luggage searched. I would get my vehicle searched. And it was annoying. It was frustrating. And
So it
every
wasn't
single,
just in the United States or Canada. This was all over.
everywhere. It was most annoying when I'm getting it coming back into Canada because I think I'm coming home. This is not going to happen. It's
Right.
still happening
Right.
every time I cross the,
Okay.
and and it's hitting my self-esteem, right? I'm thinking this is what I'm gonna have to go through life as a black man because I identify as black. And these are the frustrations, the obstacles. I should only expect to get so far because people are always going to be looking at this and putting me down, putting me in my place. The worst was actually when I went to Madrid. I was going through Europe. I wanted to go see the running of the bulls in wherever that city is, Pamplona or whatever it's called. And I stopped in Madrid first. And I'm in the middle of town. Bless you. Bless you. Bless you. It's a threes. Okay, we got triple
I
going.
turned my microphone on mute. Allergies are so bad right now, and I woke up this morning like just completely congested, and I feel better, but I put it on mute so that I wouldn't sneeze. But thank you. Sorry, everybody.
No worries. Okay. So yeah, so I'm at this fountain. It's all tourists around this fountain. It's right in the middle of Madrid. Undercover officer comes up and says, I need to see your passport. I'm like, okay. So I give him my passport. And then he looks at it and goes, you don't have a visa. You need a visa to be in this country. I said, no, I don't need a visa. I'm from Canada. Canadians don't need a visa. He goes, no, you need a visa. Come with me. So he takes me and he throws me in a paddy wagon. And I've never seen a paddy wagon before. I'm seeing it from the inside. And then he throws another black guy in, and another black guy in, and another black guy in. And I'm like, okay, I get what's going on here. Eventually, there's 10 of us. There's no more rooms. They take us all to jail to be processed. And so I'm standing there in this line with all these other guys, and they go through our stuff, they go through our ID, and then there's the strip search and the anal cavity search.
No.
Yeah. And it's not necessary. It's just there because they want to put us in our place, show that they're in control, there to humiliate us. That's the whole thing that's going on. So I'm in line, getting closer and closer, watching each guy get stripped and squat and searched, and my anxiety is growing. And I'm like, this is my life now. Like, this is what happens. And because I was in such a state, there's a couple of things that just escaped my awareness. Number one was I was in the best shape of my life. I was a bodybuilder at the time. And number two was that we were in view of the holding cell with the working girls. So when my clothes came off, that cell just erupted. It was like, "Woo, baby, love it, dude! Shake what mama got you." I'm like, all right, this is not so bad. I got a cheering squad, right? So
It's all perspective, right?
all perspectives. So I escaped the humiliation. Then I spent the night on a concrete floor, and then the next day I got the hell out of that country. So when I got home, I'm talking to my coach about my latest border crossing story. And he says, Shiraz, are you ready to step out of that story? Right. And so he taught me about stories and how everything in life are stories. And we think we have good stories and bad stories. So, like, I always find the best parking spots. Good story. Right. No one ever listens to me. Bad story.
Right.
I have a loving relationship with my partner. My business never gets as far as I want it to. Right. So we've got these good and bad stories. However, to our unconscious mind, there are no bad stories. They're all good. You just have to figure out why they're good. Right. So, for instance, a lot of people come to me because they want to make more money or they think they want to make more money. And then we have a conversation with them and find out that they don't actually want to make a lot more money, right? That the lack of money is a good thing. So, an example for me is not that I wasn't making very little money. When I got into business, I quickly went to $100,000 and then I just was steady, a complete plateau. I couldn't get any higher than that. And I'm like, I started off at like 30,000 and I went straight up to 100,000 very quickly. Why have I stopped? And I couldn't figure it out. And there was an opportunity I found to make $1 million a year. And I actually got into a business deal negotiations with Bob Proctor and John Assaraf and a few other big names. So I'm like, this is going to go. This is going to be amazing. So over the next 2 years, my income went from $100,000 to zero for 2 years. And I'm like, this is not right. What is going on? I'm in contact with these people, having negotiations. The deals just aren't going through. Things are getting delayed. Why am I not making that $1 million? Eventually, I gave up on the whole thing and went back to my profession at my actual job. And then it came up to 100,000 and went steady again. And then that was before I knew about all these things. So then I started learning about this. And as it turns out, when I was a teenager, my friends and family are always like, Shiraz, you're really intelligent. You're creative. We have no doubt that you're going to be making millions of dollars. You're going to have the house on the beach. You're going to be traveling the world. And then we get to come party with you. We'll come, hang at your pool and party, travel. We'll have so much fun. And they're all thinking this is the best idea. And my mind is going, oh my God, they're all going to leech off me. Right? When I make enough money, they are going to descend. I will have no privacy. I will be forced to go on trips with them. And my brain is like, no, no, that's never going to happen. And I made this unconscious decision that $100,000 is enough that I can live comfortably, but I don't have to worry about everyone descending on me and leeching off my wealth. And when I came up with that idea to make $1 million, my brain said, no, get as far away from that as possible until you learn your lesson. And then we can come back here. So all this was going on unconsciously while I'm trying my best to make money. When I worked with a coach and found out that that's what was going on, we shifted the narrative. If they want to come hang at my house, no. I mean, there are some times I'm like, sure, let's have a party. But for the most part, if I want privacy, I get privacy. They don't get a say. It's my house. It's my money. If I want to travel by myself, I'll travel by myself. If I feel like inviting someone, I can invite people. After I made that decision, within the next year, I went to $200,000 a year. And then last year, I went up to $1 million in sales. Right?
Nice.
That one belief holding it in there. Right?
So how can someone identify that they have a belief if it's in their unconscious mind and they don't know that it's there? Like,
Any
how do you determine that?
any consistent result you're getting is something you want in your life. Any consistent problem you have is a solution for an unconscious problem you're not looking at. So you may not know what it is, but you can automatically identify the symptoms. What happens though is we just think the symptoms are life. Like I just thought I was having problems with business deals. I didn't think I should look inside and say, why don't I want the $1 million? All right. So if you're like just getting by each month, why do you just want to get by each month? The reason a lot of people just want to get by each month is because you struggle, and you get your bills paid at the end of the month. You get hit with dopamine, adrenaline, some oxytocin, and your whole body goes, oh, that felt good. And it wants to do it every month. So you struggle to get out at the end every month over and over. You're in a junkie fix to those chemicals with those emotions. And
So if you are somebody who's just getting by, how can they change their perception, change the narrative so that is it that they want to get those dopamine, fixes on a regular basis or not need the dopamine fix?
see, you're going to be addicted to something.
Right.
That's it. That's your body is designed that way. It wants to be addicted to something. It wants to create a state of homeostasis. So if you just try to get out of addiction without something to replace the addiction, it doesn't last. You go into withdrawal and you look for something else. So you have to be conscious to replace the addiction. So when I was talking to my coach and he said, "Are you want to step out of that story?" I'm just sitting there going, "This isn't a story. This is racism. Like this is nothing I have control over, right? So don't tell me it's a story." All right. And he said, "Trust. You don't get denied jobs because you're Black. You don't get stopped in traffic because you're Black. There's all these things that happen to Black people because they're Black, and none of them happen to you. You only get stopped at borders. That's a story." And I'm like, okay, let's say that's a story. What's the payoff? There's always a payoff. I'm getting delayed. I'm getting frustrated. I'm getting humiliated. It's costing me money. It's costing me time. Where's the benefit? He goes, Shiraz, when you tell your border crossing stories to people, you light up. You feed off their emotional reaction to your struggles. It feels like love, and you are addicted to that feeling of people's reactions to your story.
Oh, wow.
right? And you can't keep using the same story. They'll get bored. So you got to keep creating border crossing stories. And I was like, damn it. Right. Like, he was right.
Oh
Right.
my gosh.
Yeah. And a lot of people are doing this. See, because this isn't a story about racism, this is a story about addiction. However, we can put that in place. If you keep getting denied to stuff, we're going through problems because of the color of your skin, because of your sex, because of your age, because of where you came from, because of your weight. Because if you're telling that story over and over again, you're like, this keeps happening to me because of this. That's actually an addiction. That's not what the problem is. It's not that those problems don't exist, but they don't have to exist on an individual level. You have control on an individual level, even though something might exist in society.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, so you talked about if you want to get over one addiction, you need to have something to replace it.
Yes. So
How does that work?
in that case, I made the decision. I'm going to get love from people for my successes. I'm going to hang out with people that will celebrate my successes. I get to celebrate theirs. And that's where I'm going to get my fix from, not from my struggles anymore. And after that, I stopped getting stopped at borders. It just went away.
Hmm,
Yep, I haven't been stopped since.
interesting.
Right? And I looked back and I figured out what was going on. Number one, did you know that there are non-white customs agents?
Yeah,
I didn't, because I was unconsciously lining myself up with the white ones for maximum racism effectiveness. After I got out of that story, I'm like, wait, she's Chinese. He's Indian. Like, where did these people come from? They're always there. And then the other thing is, when you look at it logically, what are customs agents and security trained for? Suspicious actions, the way people are looking and moving. What am I doing when I'm coming into an airport with the story? Who's the one that's going to stop me this time? Where
right.
are they? Right?
That totally makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're on guard. You're waiting for that to happen.
Yep.
You're
So,
asking for it to happen by your actions, the
yep.
energy that you're, the frequency that you're emitting, all of that. Yeah,
Yeah.
right,
I couldn't tell though, because I was in the middle of the story.
right.
Once I got out of it, it just made perfect sense that I don't get stopped anymore.
Wow. I mean, after 9/11, I just remember traveling with my son
Mhm.
and they delayed, it was at the gate. They wouldn't let my son and I get on the plane. And they were like, I remember having like bottles, formula, and they were giving me, this was after 9/11 because my son was
Yeah.
born in the year 2000.
Mhm.
And I remember traveling after 9/11 and he was still, you know, a little bit of bottles, not that much, but things like that. And I remember going, okay, I'm white, blonde with an infant or a little, kid that was still I
Yeah.
carried most of the time, so I don't know. It only happened a few times, but they were definitely early on. They were definitely not being careful not to make sure that they were pulling aside every
Oh yeah.
race.
Yeah. Well, after 9/11,
Yeah.
I did not travel for 3 years. I had to, yeah, there's no way. I mean, the story was already bad. You think I'm going to add that to it? Like, no,
Right.
done.
Yeah.
And it doesn't help that I have a Muslim name, right? So,
Boy, you just got it at every which way. Sure.
boom, 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 boom.
Here's the thing. I mean, while it totally sucks that, here we are 2024 and we still have racism coming in at every different level. And unfortunately, it's in human DNA. I mean, you go back 10,000 years and you've got different tribes that are against each other
Yeah.
that look very different. I mean, it's just in our DNA. And it's like, I wish we could remove that. I still, you try to have some sort of logic. Why is that there? Because, you know, there's a circle of life and you look at, different species of apes that will attack other apes and kill other apes.
Yeah.
Right. So it happens in nature all the time.
Mhm.
And I don't understand, like there's a purpose for some of it, right? Because the animal needs to kill that animal as a source of food, and there's a whole reasoning behind it
Yeah.
in nature. But the whole discrimination and I'm better than you and I don't like you because you look different than me, like I don't understand how that serves humanity, but it's in our DNA
It's
regardless.
fear,
It's there.
it's fear and protection.
Fear and
So
protection.
when
Yeah,
when we started off, we were in tribes, and
right.
there was if there was scarcity, then there's competition between tribes. So you learn to see what your tribe looks like and fear and worry about anything that looks different. And that's still carried on. It's because people get scared and they look for something similar. They look for something that feels safe. And so then they just target other things. As we get into this more homogenous society and we're having all this people crossing borders, going to different places, it's just becoming commonplace for different ethnicities to be around each other. We will eventually evolve out of that. But that type of evolution takes generations. So, our
Yeah.
great, 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 great grandchildren, they'll be like, well, that's fine. There will be no need for racism at that point.
Yeah. I mean, I know growing up in the 70s, there was still a lot of racism toward Blacks.
Mm,
I lived in outside of Annapolis, Maryland, and it was pretty much 50 white, 50 Black. And we didn't have any Chinese restaurants in the strip malls, right?
mm,
It's those types of immigrants, the Chinese, Indian, which are the two other big, nationalities, the Asian and the Indian races that have come to the United States, hadn't really come out into the suburbs at that point. But I remember growing up and watching my father go from when I was a teenager, and I would say there was a boy that I liked, and the first thing out of his mouth was, "Is he white?"
mm.
Well, guess what that did for me, hearing that, right? I
Yeah.
only dated white men because it was my father. But 20 years later,
Mm,
that was in the 70s and 80s, some of his closest friends were Black. But
yeah.
it took probably 20, 30 years for him to go to make a shift
Yeah.
with that,
And
So I
it's
can
interesting.
see how that can take place. It takes place over generations upon generations.
Yeah. And it's funny because it depends on your relationship too, because I have a friend that her father would be like, is he white? And so she only dated black guys.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because it's like, if you're going to put that rule down, I'm going to go against it. So,
And I was very much a rule follower.
yeah.
And one of the things that I try not to live with any regrets at all, right? I think it's not worth it. But I do remember being in the 10th grade and the high school star football player was Black, and he
Mm,
was a senior, and he asked me to be his date at the senior prom, and I had to say no because of my father. And I don't remember his name, but to this day, I wish I could, find out his name. I probably could,
mm,
and just apologize because I felt so bad for that. I've never talked about this on a podcast before, but it was just one of those things that it was like, I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, my father it wasn't his intent
mm.
to put that into me, but it was like, that really sucked.
Yeah.
That's how I was raised, and that I adored this young man, and he asked me to the prom, and I couldn't go with him, and I really wish, one of those times that you could go back and turn back the time, turn
Mm.
back the clock, and replay. Anyway, we've digressed, but let's go back to helping people overcome unconsciously addicted struggles, because we started talking about it, and I kind of want to dive into that because I think it's, when we talk about addiction, people immediately think of drugs, alcohol,
Yeah.
cigarettes, gambling,
Yeah.
sex. Those are kind of the big ones. But I mean, there's days I'm addicted to work and I
Mhm.
don't want to stop,
Yeah.
or, I wish I could be addicted to exercise.
So
But yeah, so kind of go into that because addiction can cover so many different things. It's not just the big
yeah, it
ones.
covers so many different things, but it all boils down to chemical addiction.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. Right. That
Like,
makes sense.
yeah. So it doesn't matter if it's sugar, it doesn't matter if it's work, it doesn't matter if it's bad relationships, good relationships, it all comes down to a chemical addiction. And so when you get that and treat it like an addiction, you can get through it easier. You can be more forgiving of yourself when you fall off the wagon, right? Because you're working through an addiction, right? And I don't know if you've read Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza.
I know of the book, but I have not read it.
So one of the things he goes into the science of this. And we have different emotions throughout our days. However, there is a default emotion that everyone has, and it's different for every person. And when you have a default emotion, it's basically you're in that more often than you're in any other emotion. Your cells actually create receptors for the chemicals associated with that emotion, because every emotion causes chemicals to flood your body. So frustration has a chemical solution, and happiness has a chemical solution, and they're very different. So if you're, say, frustrated, you're trying to build your business, it's not going the way you want it to, and you're frustrated most of the days, things come up, you problems with the family, there's frustration. You've got cells with receptors for the chemicals associated with frustration. So now you say, you know what? I'm done. I don't want to be frustrated all the time. I want to be happy. So you decide, I'm going to be happy. I'm going to be happy a lot more. So you start being happy. Then your cells aren't getting the chemicals they want. The cells actually send a signal to your brain that says, make this person frustrated. We need our fix. Okay. So then something happens, you get frustrated, your whole body goes, oh, thanks, we needed that. And then you may even get frustrated that you got frustrated because you're trying so hard to be happy. And then your body goes, oh, yeah, keep it coming. And you get stuck in this. So you actually have to stay in the new space long enough for your cells to go, oh crap, we're just not going to get enough of this. So that they change the receptors to the ones associated with the new emotion, in this case, happiness. And now you become addicted to happiness. So now at this point, if frustration comes up, your cells go, where are our happiness chemicals? And it'll send a signal, say, do something to make this person happy. And this has physically been proven now. So, so there's that element of addiction.
So for me,
Mhm.
just I've had this growth mindset for over 35 years, and I've called myself a self-help junkie and whatever. For me, I noticed the frustration because
Mhm.
I had a couple of instances today where I was feeling frustrated, and it was both 3 times. Today
Mhm.
was my day to handle canceling things, right? There was renter's insurance that wasn't canceled last year when my son moved out of his apartment. My GoDaddy, all these things I had to cancel. I had to get on the phone with the bank to set it, and it was 3 things that when you're dealing with another person that doesn't communicate very well, you're like trying to hear them. What did you just say? A 5 minute thing could turn into 20 minutes. And I find myself getting that. But see, for me, I don't like it. So what I do is I recognize it and then I go through a series of, it's kind of a self-talk where I recenter myself, whether it's deep breathing, things like that. And that seems to work. Is
Mhm.
is that example of a way to do that? By me doing that, is that changing the receptors? I guess is what I'm asking.
That's helping. The question that comes up for me is, do you want those people to be unhelpful?
No, but maybe I'm just expecting them to be unhelpful.
Yeah.
Boom.
So
So I'm
that's what you
expecting
do.
them to be unhelpful because that's my experience, right?
Yeah. And when they are unhelpful, you get a hit of dopamine because you're right, and that's your addiction.
But we want to be right. I want to be
Yeah.
right.
Yes. Right. And then there's other things that happen because I've had people with they're never helpful, and I get so frustrated, but at the same time it's just like I'm smarter than this person. Why is this person such an idiot? So that's more chemicals of unconscious happiness. Even though you're frustrated with that person, you're getting this I'm smart going on. And so now you want to encounter more people that are not helpful, and so that you can keep going. And this is the like if you studied self-help and law of attraction, you know that we attract all these things into our lives.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And we can control elements of reality that we don't even have realize we can. So you can actually determine who that phone call goes to, the helpful person or the non-helpful person, based on your state, so
So
that you get
before I pick up
more
the phone, right.
before
So
you
before I
pick
pick
up.
up the phone, set an intention. Right. It's about doing things intentionally. And I know that, Shiraz, and we forget, right? We're humans, we're busy, we forget. So
Yep.
yeah, so before I pick up the phone, set the intention that I'm going to be talking to somebody who's extremely knowledgeable, and we're gonna get through this quickly, et
Yeah.
cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Right.
So I was on with support the other day because I had two providers and I'm moving stuff from one provider to the other provider. And so when I called them and I said, "Look, this isn't working," and they're like, "Oh, well, that's because there's a problem on your other provider." Right. And I'm like, "Oh, crap. Okay." And then the guy's like, "Let me tell you how to fix that." And I'm like, "What?" And he said, I'll show you how to fix it. I said, "But it's with some other provider." He goes, "Yeah, but we keep notes here in case that happens because people switching providers is a regular thing." And he helped me solve the problem, and he was the competition.
That's awesome.
Right? And I was just like, this is amazing, right? Because I don't have the intention of getting an idiot on the phone.
Yeah.
And just as a matter of business, like, am I going to do more business with the people that can help me with other providers? Oh, hell yes. Right.
Yeah. Oh my God. I'm sitting here laughing because the more, I guess it's I hate to use the word older, but the older I get in years with my biological age,
Mhm.
because I feel like I'm actually getting younger all the time, right?
Good.
It just cracks me up, like
Mhm.
how our brains are wired. When you can kind of remove yourself and look at it, it's kind of like, oh my God, it's hysterical. Like some of the things we put ourselves through,
Yes.
right? I mean, it kind of is. It kind of is
Yeah.
kind of funny.
And some of the things we put ourselves through that don't actually happen.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Oh, I know. Like I love, like my brain will start going off on a tangent thinking about how to resolve a problem. Should this problem arise, here's how I'm going to handle it. And then I'm like, what are you doing? Like,
what's happening right now?
it's
So
not happening.
one of the stories I've got in my book, How to Rewrite Reality, is about when I was walking my dog. And in my neighborhood, there's a bunch of people that, like, not a lot, because there's a lot of dogs, but that they just don't pick up after the dog. So you'll walk in there and
Yeah.
you'll see dogs, right? And I'm like,
Same.
how
It's
hard is
same
this?
in my neighborhood. I know there's nothing we
Right?
can do about it. Yeah, I know.
I'm out walking my dog, and then this lady is walking by on the sidewalk as he's doing his business. And then she sort of looks over at us and then continues to walk. And so what happens in my brain is she wondering if I'm one of those people that doesn't pick up the poop? Right, right. So she's continuing to go. I get the poop going up, and she's walking far ahead of me at this point. And I'm thinking, man, imagine if she called me out for that. It's like, make sure you pick up his poop. And I'm like, I'm gonna pick, like, so I'm having this now interaction between me and her that didn't actually occur. All she did was glance over. And
Right.
she's saying, make sure you pick up the poop. Look, lady, I know how to pick up. I'm not one of those people. And I'm a couple minutes later, I'm walking and I realize my hands are in fists because I'm fighting with this woman in my mind.
Right.
Didn't actually happen. Like, but I'm completely stressed out right now for no reason.
Shiraz, that actually did happen to me though
Okay.
last year when we were
Ah,
staying in, we rented a condo for 4 months out on Lake Norman just to kind of see do we want to get a second place? let's try it out. And there was multiple women there who, I think that they didn't like dogs,
Mhm.
and probably had that experience where people were not picking up after their dogs. But it happened at least 3 times where I'd be out with my dog and random people would tell me, make sure you pick up after your dog. But it, and they even yelled at me one time, and I'm like, do I look like somebody who's not going to pick up after my, I mean, it was like, but it happened to me. That
Yeah,
literally happened to me. So that's real. That's a real situation.
for real situation.
Oh my gosh. But yeah,
But we create these stories, we pull them into our
yeah,
lives,
yeah,
right? So for whatever fix we're looking for, it always comes down to what's the fix I get out of this. Right?
yeah,
And when you start making those decisions, this is where I'm going to get my fix, your whole life starts to change. Because one of the things is like, got to work hard to succeed, right? You feel so good after you put in all this effort and got that big success. And so people unconsciously make sure things are hard so they can have that wonderful feeling of, a hard day's work, a job well done, right? And when I realized, well, wait, that's just a story, then now I get my fix whenever I need to do something and it just gets taken care of by itself. And I'm like, wow, that feels way better.
yeah,
I didn't do a damn thing.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, because what I learned is that when we're like working hard in
Mhm.
our mind, I'm using air quotes, we're got to work hard. There's a resistance
Mhm.
happening, and it's easy to do all the busy work, but the busy work isn't really going to move the needle in your business per
Yeah.
se, right? And when you work in a state of flow, things just, I feel like my creative juices just pump a lot higher,
Mhm.
and um I get a lot more accomplished. Time has no, there is no time and space.
Yeah.
um but the days where I'm trying to, like, when you're pushing after 6 hours of work, I'm exhausted.
Mhm.
But the days, like last week, I probably worked 4 out of 5 days, at least 12 hours each day, and I could have ran 5 miles at the end of the day. Like, they're literally, I was not tired at all because I was in such a state of flow that it wasn't affecting my physical or mental um stamina, if you will.
Well, because there are energizing tasks and there are draining tasks.
Right,
And it's based on the person and what they align to. So something that's draining for you could be energizing to someone else.
right.
So yeah, so you could be working 12 hours a day and you're done and you're like, oh my God, I feel amazing. So
Yeah.
one of the cats are fighting. Okay. Uh, one of the missions I have right now in my business is whenever I get the feeling of I don't want to do that, even if it's slight, I don't want to do that. I see if it can be eliminated. If not, can it be automated? If not, can it be delegated?
Yep.
Right. So that by the end of this year, there should be nothing left in my business where I even get the tinge of I don't want to do that. It's just going to be
Yeah.
the things I love, which are all the energizing tasks, which
Right.
means I could do 12-hour days and come out of it going, I feel amazing.
Yeah.
Most people don't do that. They think they have to do this either because they have to work hard or there's just certain things that are your responsibility. If you don't do them, you're not being a good boss or entrepreneur or whatever it is. And when you let all that go, you're left with a life that's fun and very profitable. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, so true. Oh my gosh. We could keep talking about this for hours and hours, but I want to respect our audience's time. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about that we didn't bring up today?
So there's two elements to really changing the reality around you. And I found a lot of people deal with one or the other, and you need both.
Okay.
Number one is getting rid of those beliefs, those stories as to why things need to be hard, why you can't have money, why you can't be healthy, all that stuff. And the thing to keep in mind is any consistent problem you have in your life is the solution for an emotional problem you're not looking at, so you can get your chemical fix.
Okay.
So Instead of saying, why is this happening to me, or how do I get through this? The question you want to ask is, why do I want this in my life? Right? That line of thinking can lead to the actual answers bubbling up out of your subconscious so you can see what the story is, invalidate the story. Oh, that's just something my mom used to say. And sometimes that's all it is. You don't even realize you're running off stuff your parents said when you were growing up. And then you're like, I'm done with that. And then the story can change. The other half of the equation is training your brain to think the thoughts you want to think, right? And this can be harder than most people think because you've seen movies like The Secret where it's like get into the feeling of the thing already been done and just imagine you're there. You have to hold those thoughts and feelings for 30 seconds or more for your neural pathways to start reorganizing. And most people can hold a thought for 7 seconds or less, which is about the same as a goldfish. So this is why a lot of people go, well, this manifestation stuff doesn't work. I'm like, it does, but there's actual a science to it and mechanisms going on in your brain and body, right? The other thing is when you're doing visualization, you have to visualize from a first person point of view for that period of time, because then your mind thinks it's actually happening. It can't tell reality from imagination when you're doing it that way, right? So if it thinks it's actually happening, then it starts rewiring your brain saying, this is my life. If you're pretending to be confident during a sales call and, whatever they say, I got an answer for that, this is good, then your brain's thinking this is who I am during a sales call. If you're worried about how you are up on stage, if you see yourself from your eyes looking at the audience, giving your talk and give your talk in real time, and how does that feel and how confident you are and how does it feel from the audience responding, then your brain's like, well, this is what I do. I'm a speaker that's confident up on stage, and all this stuff starts to rewire. I've done this for my income, for my health, for my presence on stage, and everything starts to rewire, and the results just start to show up. And oftentimes it's like magic, right?
Yeah.
There are times you have to actually take the actions, and you have to be willing to always take the action. This is the one thing. Be willing to work hard. It's not you have to work hard.
Right.
In that willingness, sometimes you do it, and sometimes it just gets done for you. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I know I'm not going to give a bunch of examples here on the show, but I have experienced firsthand dozens of times in my life where things have shown up and you're like, where did that come from? You know, and if you thought long and hard about it, there was multiple things leading up to it, right? Because when you want something like that, the timing, it's not on your time, right? So you can't say, I want this to happen by this date and this, no, I don't believe it can really work. It's putting that energy out there, and it's going to show up in divine timing when
Mm.
it's appropriate. Right, because we can't you're not gonna you can think about it all you want, but to manifest a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, right? But that pot of gold that you want may show up will show up in another way, on
Yeah.
another shape or form. Yeah,
Yeah, because if it has to be a pot of gold, you've restricted the
right,
possibility.
right. Yeah, yeah,
Yep,
exactly.
yep. It could be a coupon for a pot of gold. It could be
Right. That's right. That's right.
oh, there we go.
That's a whole nother conversation. But Shiraz, thank you so much for joining me, folks. Check out the show notes where you can get all of Shiraz's social media tags and accounts. Check out his book, How to Rewrite Reality. I'm sure you can get it on Amazon. Yep. And please like and review this episode. And thank you for joining me, Shiraz. And thank you, everybody who's tuned in.
Thank you, Sandy. This has been great.
Oh, it's been awesome. Thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone.